Good morning, friends. It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm, and today I'm going to introduce you to the hopefully new location for the flower farm. So it's early morning, not super early. It's around 9 o'clock, and it is very, very overcast, and today, which is lovely. It's like 68 Fahrenheit and there's a light breeze. It's beautiful, very humid, but beautiful. It feels like fall. So I want to introduce you to this location, and then we're gonna just take some measurements with a measure wheel. I'm gonna mark with some pin flags and stuff and just talk about my visions for the space, and most importantly, fill you in on how I'm going to get the most important resource here, which is water. Okay, so there's my car. Here's the road. This road, this is the road I actually live on. My house is about 3.5 miles that way, and there's not much traffic here because it's all residential and for the most part open space, as you can see back there. This road does go to St. Mary's University, a small Catholic university in the next town, but it's pretty quiet out here. It's all residential. Like I said, there's some people who live on the top of the hills up here, but for the most part, there's not much here, and it's nice and quiet. So this area back here used to be, well, not used to be, is an actual wetland, swampy wetland in the rainy season. So the water comes down the hill in an actual creek. This all fills up and becomes swampy, goes underneath the path here, and you can see there's some ductwork and everything here from the city. And over there on the other side of these hedges is an actual wetland. So there is water available, but you have to be able to collect it. So you will also notice that this area that I'm looking at is on the hillside. Oh, I can hear the bells of St. Mary's in the distance. That's very nice. So one of the things we're going to do here is collect water on a tarp. I already have one tarp. I might need to get two. But what you do is you come to a higher area than where you want to bring the water. It's all gravity fed, but I am going to use a pump because I'm pushing it through drip irrigation, and that's going to need a little extra oomph. But you dig a depression, you put the, I'm just listening to all the wildlife, you put the tarp down, you have one corner of the tarp is the lowest point, and you build a berm up all along the side of it, all four sides. Then you have a pipe coming out of that lower corner. It comes down to fill up. I'll have a whole bunch of IBC totes here. It'll fill all of those up during rain events. And then from there, I can use a pump that is gonna run on solar, and they have these. They're actually fairly common. A little solar panel will power the pump, because out here, we'll get full sun. I mean, it's full sun when it's sunny. And actually it has a battery backup for on cloudy days. So that pump will then push the water to a mainline tubing and feed my drip lines on my beds. Now, the area that I'm going to be cultivating starts back here along this old fence line. I'm gonna keep it along this tree line here, not go down the slope too close to the road, because there are gas and buried electric lines under there and some other stuff, and water. But to tap into that water, that's the city water, would be roughly $20,000. Not gonna do that. So staying along these tree lines will be the north side of the fence line. Goes all the way down to that fence line down there. And then we'll come all the way back up here. I can go up as far as I want, but I don't want to terrace. I don't want to do all that earth moving, because not only is it challenging, but I don't have the experience terracing, or even making permaculture terracing with swales and berms. You have to do that along the contour so that you don't mess anything up, and I would not want to cause further erosion on this hillside in heavy rain events. So this cluster of stuff is going to stay because it anchors the hillside. So we'll stay to the left of it, come along here, and this is where my deer fence will go, right? So this will be a big long rectangle. So what I want to do today is measure this whole distance down one side and the other, and you'll see there's undulating ground here. So we are going to bring in some earth moving equipment, just a little bobcat or skid steer, something that we can push some stuff around and kind of level this area out a bit. There's a slight dip right here. It's not going to take much. So we'll be doing that. We are not going to cut into this hill over here. You can see it sticking out right here. Not going to cut into that. I'm actually going to just use that area to put, I can either keep plants in pots or I can cut all this down and sow wildflowers in here. This can be a pollinator patch. I don't want to mess too much with the flow of the land here because we don't want any land slippage, and I also don't want to have to put a retaining wall or anything like that. I'm not into putting in huge amounts of infrastructure here. It's not my land. I'm not renting it. I'm only renting it. So in areas like this, you see this gets very narrow, and this is very important. These are oak trees. The reason you don't see any weeds here is that oak trees are allelopathic. They have chemicals in their roots that inhibit the growth of plants. So you might get some grasses under oaks, but and anybody who's tried to plant under oaks knows that it's very difficult. Not just from a shade perspective, which is what most people think the problem is. It's the allelopathic nature of the chemicals secreting from the roots. And a tree's roots come out usually as far as the drip line, sometimes farther. So in order to avoid, it's like this whole central area here will be great because it's not really going to be suffering from that root issue. Those oaks down there are going to need to be trimmed way back on this side, which the landowner is happy to do. It will raise up the canopy quite a bit. We'll also open that area to more sun. But because of that allelopathic nature of oaks, I'm actually going to use that area to put a large locking shed so I can keep tools and equipment there. It will be somewhat shaded, but also I don't have to try to force things to grow underneath there. So something similar here. I'll probably have something smaller for storage wise here because this will be in the middle. My idea is to have growing beds here and growing beds there. So again, on the other side of this kind of rise. So we'll have to do some land shuffling over there. May not get to that this year. We'll just have to see. This area here is long. I can fit, I'm hoping, 4 beds, potentially 100 feet each. We will see. That's one of the reasons I'm going to measure. But you know, I can be creative with the bed layout. This area, another reason I like it, there's no hemlock. There's no poison hemlock. Now we do have, you know, these thistles and dandelions and stuff like that. That is totally normal. And also some cardoons, which cracks me up. They pop up everywhere here too. But there's some poison oak in there, but doesn't matter. I'm not gonna, that's also turkey's nest in there. Like, I want to leave as much of this to nature as possible, and starting a wildflower field here would be good for the ecosystem as well as looking beautiful and being great for the pollinators. And then you'll see here this kind of low area. This actually is water runoff during rain events. So I want to make sure that I do not put growing beds right here, right? That would not make sense. So mostly what I'm going to do, like I said today, is I'm going to measure this whole area off. I could put some growing beds here. You know, obviously the hillside is going to run off everywhere, but there are very specific places that I know water runs based on what it looks like on the topography. And then because we'll be building in-ground raised beds, not out of wood, but just like I have currently, that will actually help trap some of the water, just like in permaculture, inside those beds, and it will provide longer term moisture to the plants in the soil. So I know that was a whole lot of explanation, and maybe it was stupid and boring, but I just wanted you to have an idea of what we're looking at here. Yes, it's a lot of work. And if I was doing this by hand with hand tools, I'd never get it done. So we are definitely going to be bringing in, just for a day, something to kind of move some soil around and level some places out. And also scrape up a little bit so that all these dandelions and stuff get flattened. They will come back. They will absolutely come back. And I will be battling that. But anywhere anybody farms or gardens, there are weeds. And that's okay. Because if you start with a roughly clean slate, you can just then battle them a little bit easier. So another thing that I notice all throughout here is lots of gopher holes, and I'm actually standing in one because my heel is sinking. So you can see lots and lots of gopher holes. So what I'm debating about doing is, I really don't want to do this. I'm debating about putting down a roll of hardware cloth underneath the beds before we build them. That will prevent things from coming up from underneath and eating the plants. But that will also prevent me from being able to broad fork an area. So and it's just a big use of resources. Like, that's a lot of hardware cloth. So I really don't want to do that. I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards just using, that putrefied garlic and egg solid stuff, which actually works really, really well to repel the rodents. I don't know, we'll see. When we scrape this area a little bit, we'll be able to see more clearly how bad it is. But I mean, I can see all the runs, at this point. There are also lots and lots of deer here. So of course, we'll be putting up the same fence that I have back at the farm because I'm excited to see them. I just don't want them in eating my stuff. So we'll just make sure we exclude them on the outside. The other thing we have lots and lots of here are owls and hawks and falcons, wild turkeys, like I said, bobcats, mountain lions, which is all normal, coyotes, same thing over at the other location, but here a little bit more because there's a lot less traffic. It's not off the highway. It's very quiet out here, which is going to be so lovely for filming. I won't have to put a super dampener when I edit because there'll only be occasional cars going by. And the speed limit here is only 35. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk out the perimeter, and I'll probably put some pin flags down where I started and stopped just so I have an idea when I come out next. Where did I start measuring from? But I need to get dimensions and then figure out if there's a good location for putting the tarp down to collect rainwater. You don't want too much of a slope because then it just all runs out of the containment system. So, I mean, yes, I can build up a higher berm on the downslope side, but it's going to take a little bit of engineering. I do see, this spot right here is not at all flat. It's actually quite steep, but we could dig with the machine, dig out an area, berm it up with that soil that we dig out on this side, line the whole thing. Basically, we're creating a little retaining pond with some tubing. I mean, it definitely is good elevation-wise because it's a lot higher than where the IBC totes would be. And so the water will just run down to them with gravity. But I'm still on the fence about that, if that's the right location. Because the other thing too is that's highly visible. If we did it back here, oh, that's a steep slope. This is still steep back here, but actually a little bit less of a slope than what I just showed you. We could put it behind all of this stuff. The tarp would not be visible from the road. The pond itself would not be visible from the road. It would mean, running a little bit more PVC. But the other nice thing about this location is it's kind of in the middle of the plot. And my idea was if I could have the water storage in the middle, then I can have 2 mainline tubes coming off of that, one feeding this way for these beds and the other feeding that way for those beds. And that seems like it's the most efficient, least use of PVC, lets the pump work less hard. So we'll see. I know the landowners were hoping that we could also tie into the seasonal stuff over here and pump out of there. And that might be possible, but I think the filtration for that is going to be pretty intense. So yeah, I don't know. And again, all of this is seasonal as long as we have storage, and I have calculated how much storage I need. And I may have to change those numbers based on my measurements today, but I think I know exactly how many gallons I'll need for an extended dry season. So hopefully it'll get us through, because I don't think we're going to have, I hope not, if El Nino stays in place, we won't have as long a dry season as we usually do. So there used to be water here, and we were hoping that this was still active. It got disconnected at some point, and then but all it was hooked up to is this like irrigation tubing that seems to run off in this direction up the hill. So I don't know where it was coming from. We actually climbed all the way up the hill, and we're looking for, you know, covered areas where maybe we could lift a cover and see if there was irrigation that we could turn on. We couldn't figure it out. There used to be, somebody used to have like a trailer here for a while, but there was no actual like toilet facilities or anything. Maybe it was a compost toilet, but it definitely wasn't in the ground like out at the farm, where I actually do have a capped sewer line out there. It's in the high tunnel actually. So this is pretty much untouched land. It hasn't been farmed. It has been mowed multiple times. The landowners have this really awesome 3-foot wide robotic mower. It's really heavy, which is great. And it could go up these steep slopes. It could do up to 50-degree incline, which is insane to me. But he uses it to knock down the weeds and mostly the hemlock and the poison oak, because that's really hard, as you know, to eradicate. And so he's got 11 acres here, and he has to keep at it constantly to make sure that he stays in compliance with the fire abatement laws. So, all right, let's get this measurement done. Okay, that took some mental gymnastics, nothing major, but I have a much better idea now, and I've got a rough map, and I've got distances. So one of the things that you have to think about when setting up a spot like this is, how are bigger trucks going to get in with equipment, right? So I need to be able to make sure that the guys who drop off my compost can get their trucks in here, that I can get a moving truck in here, all that kind of stuff. So this gate is busted, doesn't work anymore. It used to connect there, and this was all gated in at one point, but that was a long time ago. So this driveway is quite wide. It's not perfect, but actually my friend Griffin said he'd be happy to grade it for me when we bring the machine out. So there's 2 entrances here. This one's kind of narrow. I can get a car through there, but this one, since it was at one point a horse property, you can get a trailer through here, so I know that we can get a dump truck through here with compost. So that's settled. Now I marked off, so first you get a much better look at the oaks here. And all of those big long branches that hang out over the plot, those are all going to get cut back. So all of this will be cut back, not just for providing more full sun here, but that also will kill off some of the roots underneath and help me to be able to grow. But I'm not going to start my beds right here. So I have this huge open area where I can have compost unloaded. I'm going to have a shed right over here, pretty big shed, so that I can fit everything in it. And then this area up here, which starts to come up a slope, I'm not going to put raised beds on, but this is where all the birdies' beds will go. So these pink flags are kind of marking where the deer fence is going to go all the way around, and also some other things. But so the deer fence will go around here, and in this area, this kind of somewhat elevated area, will be birdies beds, lots of other potted stuff, maybe an arch for things to climb. So this will be kind of like the more like beauty spot and maybe a couple chairs or whatever, because, depending on how things go, I am going to need a place to rest out here. I think we'll be able to put the tarp behind this grouping of shrubs over here. I think that's going to work. That means I can use that area there for IBC totes, because I'm going to need about 6 of them. This area here, like I said, is going to be open. There's not going to be beds right here, but I am going to use it as a workspace. So it's not just going to stay open. I might put some square raised beds out of wood and stuff. So I will be using it, but the row crops will start kind of where this flag is. And this area is 20 feet wide, 82 feet long that I marked off. So we're going to have 40-foot beds, a 2-foot pathway in between, because when you're trying to harvest and stuff, you don't want to have to walk down 100 feet to turn around on the other side. So 40-foot long beds, a 2-foot wide pathway across the middle, and then more 40-foot wide beds goes to where that flag over there is and that flag there is, before the cluster of oaks. Now, back beyond here is, like I said, a bit different story, much more sloped. I will use it for things like perennials, native plants, growing a lot of things in big pots, so I can take them with me. But, like I said, wildflowers, kind of that kind of thing. Things that I can harvest on, but are not row crops. I might put something here, a raised bed here. And then this area, it's possible I could I could put rows in here. The length is fine, 40 feet. I can get from this flag to this flag, but the width is kind of getting iffy because it really starts to increase in elevation over here, and that becomes kind of annoying when you're trying to do row crops. So I could get probably 2 30-inch wide, 40-foot long beds in here, and maybe I'll do that and still have all this space. The deer fence will come down a little bit lower over here, so there'll still be lots of space that's not raised beds, raised row crop beds, but I can be creative in those spaces. I can create planters out of raised bricks, all that kind of stuff. So there's plenty of growth to space. So a little bit more math. Over at Fish Ranch, I have 200 bed feet of planting space currently. I also have that like pollinator area around the greenhouse, but cultivatable, like row crops, bed feet is 200. Here, I will be able to have 440 bed feet of space. That is a significant jump. And in my mind, definitely, and that's not even using up all this space. There's lots of other space in here that can be creatively utilized. That's just the cultivatable row crop space. So I'll be able to, I can have multiple plots of like square 4x4s that I can plant in. Like I can do that a lot of places. And those are really good options for when you're in a sloped area, because you can make them level pretty easily by just cutting into the slope in areas where you need to. And you can build those up out of wood. You could do metal, whatever. So, those, I probably will have multiples of those around, because like lilies would be great to grow in that. Now, when it comes to high tunnel use, I don't know if I'm going to set up a high tunnel out here. The space is only, the usable space, the flattish space is only 20 feet wide. So yes, I can still get a high tunnel that's 20 feet wide. And I can, in that space, I can fit, how many beds did I say? So my beds are 30 inches wide and my pathways are 18 inches wide. So I can have 5 beds in a 20-foot wide high tunnel. So I could, if I want to, make this first grouping of 5 beds that are 40 feet long. I could make that first grouping the high tunnel, and then the one behind it just field grown, and maybe I will do that. So yeah, it's kind of a balancing act. We have to see how it looks when we get it graded. If I could truly fit, I mean, I think I did the math right, that I can fit that much in there. So we'll just see, but I'm excited. I love big projects like this. If you watched the video that I linked in yesterday's video about what Fish Ranch looked like before I got out there, you'll see that I am capable of doing big jobs and transforming a space into usable space. I'll take you guys with me. We're going to get the chicks today. So I need to get the brooder ready. It's mostly ready, but I need to make a little list of the things that I need because I don't have everything for chicks right now since I kind of cycled through all that stuff when my previous chicks came up in the spring. So we'll go get the 4 new chicks today, and yeah, I'll bring you along for that. Well, here they are. Much smaller brooder than I had for the spring chicks. This is just a galvanized tub. Here's their heat source. This is a copper Moran right here. Maybe is a rooster, maybe not, we don't know. This one is a Buff Orpington, maybe a rooster, maybe not. The other 2 are red sex link, for sure female. Now, I just put them in here seconds ago. I dipped their beaks in the water so they know where they're at. I'm going to keep an eye on this one because the other 3 ran for the food. This one's just kind of sitting there swaying. I'm going to keep an eye on it, make sure. It might just be tired, but I want to make sure that it maybe can eat if it needs to eat and or drink. So I'm going to stay here and keep an eye on them. So I just made this screen top for them. I had spare lumber and stuff. And I didn't think I was going to need a cover this soon because, you know, my other chicks were in a brooder this high, much bigger, but this high, and they didn't start jumping out till like 4 weeks, right? These guys are 2 days old. So I made the thing. The reason I made it is that while I was sitting in here watching, and they all seem to be doing okay. They've all eaten and they've all had something to drink. One of the red sex link chicks jumped up on top of the brooder heater plate, and I was like, if you can jump up there, you can easily jump out. So I was like, I'm gonna go make the screen right now. And before I just used like chicken wire that I like wrapped around the top of the brooder, and it was so loud. It always came apart. You know, it was just janky. It was super janky. It was stupid. So I thought this time I've got the materials, just go quickly make it, right? So I just had to do a few quick cuts, screwed it together, stapled the stuff on there, and we're good. And there's literally no way they can get out of here. This is really heavy. So, and look, that's the one. She's already up there. So the reason I'm laughing is I came in here, I put the screen on top of the brooder. On top of the brooder. I sat down, getting ready to tell you guys about it, and that chick comes walking up to me. It was outside. It was it was in the greenhouse on the boardwalk. It just comes walking up to me like, hi. I was like, oh no. So I put her back in. I lifted the brooder plate because they're all hanging out under there because they're cold, and counted noses. There's 4 of them. So, but that one, she is precocious. Maybe that's going to be her name. So anyway, I think it's hysterical. Now I'm really glad that I made this because now I can go to sleep tonight and not worry that I'm going to wake up in the morning and they're either going to be dead because some predator got them or out wandering around in the greenhouse. So God, that's hysterical. Literally, she just walked out. I'm like, hi. Oh, okay. So one of the things I want to do with these guys, it's a little bit different raising fall chicks. I've never done it before. I've only ever done chicks once, and that was this spring. In the spring, it was really cold, really cold. At night, it would go down to like 25 Fahrenheit. I had them in here in the greenhouse, which was warmer. I had them they had their brooder plate heater, and I had a space heater in here, trying to keep it as warm as possible. I won't have to worry about that now because it's summertime, the end of summer. This is our hottest time of year. So right now in the greenhouse, it's 75 Fahrenheit, which is lovely for humans, way too cold for chicks. So they'll hang out under the brooder, and then they have space to come out if they get hot, which is the other thing you have to watch for because they can get overheated. So they just have a really hard time regulating their temperature at this age until they fully feather out. So they've got their water, they've got food, they're all eating, they know where the heat is. But I do want to handle these guys every day, and I didn't do that with my last batch. I had told myself I was going to, and then, I just didn't. I want to pick these guys up every single day. Now, the chickens that I have now, once they started laying, or even before then, once they started squatting, which was the indication that they were going to start laying soon, I can pick them up, no problem. They don't run from me, and they weren't held a lot as babies. But I do think if you handle them a lot when they're babies, it's a lot easier because in that teenage years or weeks for a chicken, they do run. You can't pick them up. They're just like chasing rabbits. So it helps, because if one of them is sick, you need to be able to get to them and pick them up and all that. So I'm going to handle these guys every day, cuddle with them a little bit, just so they're really used to me, used to my voice and all that kind of stuff, because I'm going to have to integrate these guys totally differently. I can't just set them loose when they're 6 to 8 weeks old into the main run. They'll be too small. The other chickens might kill them at that age. They could fit under certain things and get crushed. So I have to, because the chickens that are out there now, they went in much later. I think they went in when they were like 12 weeks old, so much older. So what I'm going to do is get a large dog kennel, and once they're fully feathered out in about 4 to 6 weeks, I'm going to start putting them out there in the daytime in the dog kennel inside the run, so that everybody has the chance to get used to each other through the metal of the dog kennel while everybody stays safe. That also will be really good for the chicks' immunity, because they'll be exposed to all that stuff in advance while they're building their immune system. So that's the plan. That's a lot harder to do in the springtime when it's really cold still. Daytime temperatures are really cold. So, I'll have to keep an eye on them and make sure if it gets too hot that I bring them inside where it's cooler, because again, they have a harder time regulating their temperature when they're young, even once they're feathered out. So, yeah, so that's the plan. Hopefully, if maybe 2 weeks of the dog kennel thing daily, then they'll be integrated enough and I can set them loose in the run, and they will learn from the other chickens how to go into the roost, into the coop at night. But the first couple nights, I definitely will make sure they all get in there. Tomorrow, I will take you to the nursery and we'll see what we can find. I think I might be a little early for things like mums and stuff, which is really what I would like to put out. Those probably won't arrive until after Labor Day. But you never know. It's worth a shot going to check. Those are just annuals, but if I can find some good perennials that will look great, that are not just kind of ragged at this time of year, then I'll go on and get those, because I have holes to fill. And we signed a contract last night for the HVAC system. That's why the tankless water heater was the first part that went in today. Thankfully, they're going to come on Tuesday and Wednesday next week and put in the entire new HVAC system. It's a heat pump. They have to redo all the duct work and all that kind of stuff. It's a big deal. It's a 2-day job. But the great thing about that is, even though we're going to be cool the next couple days, then it's going to go back up into the 90s. We will have AC by the time my parents arrive on Thursday, and that makes me very, very happy. So not just for our sakes, but for theirs as well. All right, thanks so much for hanging out with me today, you guys. Lots of exciting things coming up, and I look forward to sharing them with you. Keep your fingers crossed that this works out with this new property, because I will bring you guys along the ride of renovating the whole area. It will be pretty, lots of filming going on with a lot of work ahead, but I think it's going to be great. I'm already coming up with new ideas, and I guarantee you tonight at 3 a.m., which is for some reason when my body wants to wake up and think, I will come up with a whole bunch of new ideas for what to do with those places where I can't row crops. So thanks again for hanging out with me. I will see you in the next one. Bye.